enterprises spend 90% of their budget on maintaining old things. And guess what? Those people that work on those projects, they would rather do the 10% innovation. Very quickly getting into 7 and 8 figure deals, that is very rare. I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've seen that in 25 years. And I think that's where Blitzy comes in. Blitzy unlocks this challenge that's existed for decades now. And in my mind, it's kind of an unlimited market.
Neeraj, father, co-creator, maybe co-founder of T2D3, triple, triple, double, double, double. You coined that term, which has depreciated a little bit, but has a long-standing of what was world-class in SaaS for a long time. And now we're in a new era, and you guys are coming in. You guys are a part of a very meaningful part of the Blitzy round here, and joining us for the long journey. But before we get into Blitzy and the market and all of that, like take us back to counting, looking at triple, triple, double, 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 coining the term, and then the preceding many years of that being in vogue.
Happy to do it. So I would say as a SaaS investor in probably starting around 2011, I started looking for patterns on kind of what great looked like. And I was an investor in a company called Omniture and then Marketo, Bizarre Voice. We saw this trend. Once companies got the product market fit, so roughly around 2 million, to go public, they basically, the best in class companies follow this pattern where they triple twice, so kind of 2 to 6, 6 to 18, and then doubled to 36, 72, and usually they get the last double, but kind of close to it. Back then, companies went public much earlier, so about 100 million in scale. They were going public.
And you've done this 10 times, right? On boards.
I've been fortunate, been part of a bunch of journeys that have gone from this kind of stage of company all the way through thousands of people, and public offerings. And it's really fun to be part of that. I can talk to you more about that. But I'll tell you this. So I wrote this article in 2015, and it took a life of its own. And in fact, T2D3 wasn't even the title of the article. It just kind of was a hashtag that we ended with, and it just took off as a way to say this is what great looked like. And it really had a lot to do with thinking about how the founders transitioned from founder selling to building a sales team, building kind of the customer success teams, and all the pitfalls that happen in scaling that part of the organization. And what's interesting now is, and this happens a lot on social media, is T2D3 dead? And I would say, in terms of best in class, it is. Companies are growing a lot faster. Obvious question is why? And why wasn't it possible before? And the main thing that I would point out is, in the past, it was really constrained to the go-to-market function's ability to grow, which is fundamentally constrained by how many people you can get onboarded and hired and up to speed in their jobs. Now, given how product is playing such a critical role, you're seeing companies scale much faster. And what T2D3 was to get from 2 to 100 million plus in 5 years, we're starting to see the first few examples, and hopefully Blitzy will be one of these amazing examples, getting to 100 million plus in revenue in a year or two. And that's pretty exciting.
Yep. And so there's been a lot of call for new frameworks. Like, how do you think about what best in class looks like, right? Because you have things like that you didn't have to consider now, like even margin profile, right? Which you sort of had an assumed margin profile in SaaS, and things would figure it out, right? You have revenue, you have enterprise versus bottoms up with churn rate, right? And so I'm really curious how you're angling towards defining what best in class should look like and feel like as someone that's done a significant amount of pattern matching.
So, in the world of AI, I do think we're going to see companies that grow quickly and show that product market fit is actually ephemeral.
Yep.
This didn't happen in the cloud phase. It was definitely more durable per se, but it grew much slower. Here, I think it comes back to, is there really value in that initial product offering?
Yeah.
And if there is, you can argue that there's going to be strong product market fit and more durability.
Yeah.
The exact margin structure for AI is all being defined right now. Yeah. The retention rates are being defined right now. But I come back to the basics. So, having been a VC for 25 years, once you have a product that delivers value for the customer, and that's either revenue generating or cost reduction or risk reduction, those are 3 key variables, you can persist that over time.
Yeah.
And so I think this time around, I think we'll see more of a dispersion in terms of some companies are going to go really up, come back down. And we saw that with like the basic like content, like marketing content at companies that went up and down. And then you have other companies like Blitzy where there's a large TAM and there's enormous value. And I want to talk more about that. And I think it's going to be much more durable.
Before we get into that, so you're a 10-time Midas lister, which is very, very hard to achieve, right? There's also a lot of spikes in investing versus longitudinally being someone that's recognized as one of the best in the industry many, many times over, right? So just tell us a little bit more about yourself, Battery Ventures, and then we'll pivot into Blitzy.
Well, so I became a VC honestly by accident. I graduated. I studied computer science at Cornell. Came to Boston to go to business school, somebody HBS, and then when I was graduating HBS, I was looking for a hot startup to work at, and in fact, I was planning to do product management. I did my summer internship in that. That's really what I wanted to do. My wife was finishing medical school in New York, and that kind of anchored me to the Northeast. I didn't find the startup that I was super excited by. Only Blitzy was there back then. And Battery had just invested in Akamai, kind of an iconic Boston-based company, and was looking for more streaming or video-centric companies to invest in. I had worked at this company called Real Networks that built like one of the first media players for my summer internship. And they said, hey, come work with us for the second semester senior year. And I found it super exciting. And they said afterwards, they said, why don't you just come join us? And I said, all right, I'll try this for a couple of years. That's how I find my startup that I'm passionate about. 25 years later, I just finished my 25th anniversary. I should bring out my jacket and show it to you.
Oh, actually.
Wow. But it's been a lot of fun. And the part that I love about it is like you meet new people all day long. You study new markets all day long. And if you're intellectually curious, it's like a great business. And, it's exciting to see these founders really develop, win their markets. It's also really exciting to see the teams at Battery, the deal teams develop into people who start off as analysts and associates, become full-fledged partners and leading investments and seeing success in their career. So both sides of that are really interesting.
And as a part of that, as you guys are headquartered here in Boston, you guys have seen, Akamai and a number of different vintages of what I call, institutional Boston companies. And so you've been side by side with a number of folks. I know you guys are a global firm, but side by side with a number of folks across Boston building generational companies. So you can talk about what it takes and the opportunity to build a generational company here in this city.
I think Boston is I loved living in Boston. I grew up in New York City. My wife thought she would never move out of New York. We've really enjoyed raising our family here in Boston. I think we have an unfair advantage with the educational institutions that are here. And it's every year, I feel like it keeps getting better. And not just the city and everything it offers, but just the entrepreneurial activity. Obviously, the innovation has always been very strong here.
Yeah.
Almost all like the great companies at some point, those people have come through Boston in some way, and I think we're growing our share of companies that get started here right out of school. And I think that'll be a competitive advantage for us. We were investors in Akamai, as I mentioned. I also was on the board of Wayfair for 7 or 8 years. They're 10,000 people plus, also very strong in Boston. The nice thing about Boston is really once you've got your flywheel going, the loyalty level is higher. I think people enjoy the work. They're there for, it's not as mercenary as some other markets are. And I feel like you can bring people along for the mission. And that to me is a special thing, because when you get the values aligned top down from the founders all the way through the employees, like really special things can happen.
And I think, one of the things that attracted you about us is we were very values aligned, very mission aligned, and then we were able to build an unbelievable team that was very aligned with what we're trying to achieve. And so we don't have any voluntary, we started in late 2023, but we don't have any voluntary turnover, right? People that are at Blitzy are all in on the mission, and the mission is very, very hard and it's very, very ambitious. But we say like, check at the door that like you're signing up for this mission, because signing up for it means it's going to be all of us working together, sometimes late nights, right? So, sometimes, having to push yourself and your capabilities as a firm, as a team, as an employee, as an individual, as an investor coming on to achieve the mission, and it's worth it. Right, hard things don't come easy, but they're always worth it.
And the growth that happens from that is it's invaluable.
So let's talk about your view on the market. This is one of the most explosive, if not the most explosive, broader markets that I've been a part of, probably that you've seen. Different kind of inflection points throughout your career between the internet, mobile, cloud, and then you have AI. Inside of AI, we have code gen. But talk about kind of your view on the market as you've been watching this evolve over the last couple of years.
So, and taking a step back, so, as I mentioned, I've been an investor for 25 years. Every like 5 or 10 years, I go really deep on thinking about how to solve this kind of modernization use case. And I think, and we've come close many times, in terms of making investments, but it always felt like it wasn't the right time. It didn't have the right tools. And, why have I been interested in this? Like, I mean, if you were to ask me prior to about 6 months ago, I would have told you the scarcest resource in the economy is software developers. And in fact, I have a lot of investments that really kind of were geared around that. But clearly that's changed in the last 6 months. World-class developers don't actually write code anymore. They work with next generation tools to build these systems. And so how does that translate into like other companies? And what I found is the large companies, the reality is they have thousands of systems that they can't just start from a clean sheet of paper like a startup can. They gotta we gotta work with all of these systems. And the people who wrote those systems are often not there, or they're retiring, and they have to figure out how to modernize those systems. And by modernize, it doesn't need to be like mainframe COBOL. Even like 10 years ago, the code that people are using is at this point, quote unquote, legacy. And what we're seeing, even at our startups, to get them to get the benefits, to have them really get the benefits of the startup, of these code gen tools, their products need to modernize. And so to me, you've got an enormous amount of code out there that unless it's refactored in some way, we will not see developers get to benefit from these new tools. And that's a real challenge. And the challenge is a little less, I think, about, hey, we've got these old products and old code base we have to move. The reality is like enterprises spend 90% of their budget on maintaining old things. And guess what? Those people that work on those projects, they would rather do the 10% innovation. But they can't do it because they have to do this. Now, if you're a CIO at a large enterprise, a large bank, you're constantly trying to recruit people, but you got to make this pitch of like, oh, well, 9 out of 10 of you got to do these other things. And 1 out of 10 of you can get to do this. They want to get to the point that 9 out of 10 can do the new stuff. And then they can compete against the Googles and the Facebooks for talent. And so until we unlock this structural problem, it's very hard for large companies to get the productivity benefits that are on these code bases and move quickly, but also to recruit. And I think that's where Blitzy comes in. Blitzy unlocks this challenge that's existed for decades now. And in my mind, it's kind of an unlimited market.
We always say in financial services, there's the run the bank and the change the bank, right? But running the bank is priority. And so however much you project for change the bank, it naturally just there's this gravity pull towards having to run. And so the idea when you talk to the CIOs that this can be done dramatically more efficiently, allowing when they came in to be the CIO of a money center bank, it's because they had a vision that they wanted to implement, and the board was to say, we want you to implement this vision as well. We're aligned with this, right? And then every quarter, quarter over quarter, it's like, well, actually, we need to keep the system or increase resiliency in the system because like ultimately this is running the bank. So I think the being able to work with these banks and say the vision that you came in here to do, like there's a real valid pathway for you to implement that in your tenure over the next few years, right? And so like the joy you get to bring to somebody that says like, wow, I've spent my career, and this is this role at the CIO or CTO of Money Center Bank, like this was my goal for my entire career. And now I finally get to execute the technology vision, the product development vision that I came into to do it brings me a lot of personal joy. So you've had a bunch of conversations.
I'm sorry, let me just want to chime in on one thing. Like, if you would ask me like 5 years ago, like, will we ever have self-driving cars? And I would say, look, there's way too many edge cases. It's never gonna happen. If you would ask me, can we solve the problem you just said with an automated platform? So many edge cases, all this. But like, we've gotten to the point with intelligence that we can solve these really difficult problems and do things that, just you couldn't imagine before. And that's where I think, we're kind of meeting the moment with this giant pain point that's existed for decades, but for the first time, it can actually be solved now.
Yep. And now you can sit in a Waymo and you can have your laptop up and you can send off a Blitzy run and you can have autonomous driving happening while autonomous software development's happening. And
Exactly.
The future has finally arrived. So tell me, as a part of this process, as a part of getting to know each other over the last like six months, actually, you've gotten the chance to speak to a bunch of Blitzy customers, and that ultimately helped inform your view on what is possible, right? Versus 6 months ago before the industry had sort of dramatically changed. So bring me into what you learned as a part of those conversations, how your view on the market and the opportunity evolved.
Yeah, so good. Just in terms of context, Battery, we do a ton of work. Like we do a lot of customer calls, market checks. We're trying to find every kind of counterpoint that we're hearing from management of like, oh, is this really going to happen? Is there people really using it this way? And we were really happy with the calls we did here. It was very clear that the vision that we just talked about, the problem statement is crisp and clear in the customer's mind. That the initial applications that people are using Blitzy on, it's delivering value to them. They're willing to spend serious amounts of money. And usually that's something interesting. Most of these AI things, it's like small amounts, POC, this, that, the other thing. Even our POCs here are quite large. And then these, very quickly getting into 7 and 8 figure deals, that is very rare. Like I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've seen that in 25 years, to give you a sense. So that to me speaks to the opportunity and the market and the pain point that's here. And by the way, we spoke to a bunch of folks, some that we didn't know, some of them that are very closely aligned with Battery. We have some financial institutions that are investors in Battery, and we have a great relationship with them. And those folks kind of need to tell us the truth.
Yeah.
They can't just spin to the positive. They got to say the positive and negative. And vice versa for me. I got to tell them the positive.
Yeah.
And they were incredibly positive.
Yeah.
And so the signal to noise, sometimes you speak to folks, you don't know them.
Yeah.
You don't know exactly how to calibrate.
Your probability weighted.
Are they grade inflated? Are they not?
Yeah.
But when you speak to somebody it's very easy for you to tell, okay, this is not grade inflation. This is like a real thing. And they're someone who's a skeptic at heart that's had to be won over. And that's a promising sign for me.
And we start almost every first call with any firm with a skeptic at heart on the other side, right?
Definitely.
And so it's like okay, like I could sort of tell you as a part of the first conversation, like, hey, here are your concerns, here are your qualms, here are your uncertainties. Like those are absolutely like the right questions to be had.
Yeah.
And what I also going to tell you is like, I'm not going to take any money from you until you believe and validate everything that we're saying here, right? And so that's the case with all of our customers is they've got to experience it firsthand, have this deep technical validation. And then the ROI conversation is the easiest part of all time, right? Once you've experienced it and you're like, wow, like this is not incremental productivity. This is transformational from my business, right? Take my 27 and 28 roadmap and start to pull that forward and implement that now. And people start to remember like, oh, we're doing all these things because often like it drives revenue, right? And so you start to then not just have a change in bottom line conversation of, okay, well, we can do this by saving this many engineering hours, get it done in this short amount of time. We can actually affect the business, right? In a way that we're able to get product out faster, we're able to bring revenue forward, right? And then you start to go from just CIO, CTO, actually to the CEO level conversation of genuinely transforming what's capable. Those are when I get really, really excited and really deeply involved, because the idea of not just of affecting, but ultimately like valuation, market cap, like those are the conversations that you get to have as soon as you transform a piece of technology for this business. And they say, wow, we are going to change the way that we work.
And to me, that's super exciting. And that's why I think our ability to get from even 8-figure deals to 9-figure deals, I think it's going to be somewhat unprecedented.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 2026, and then we sort of know what those. But again, it's the value capture is such a small amount of the value creation that like laying out the roadmap, what you're able to do, right? Making sure that everything that you're showing is on a relative basis to using the existing AI stack, which we strongly recommend. You have your CLI based tool, you have your NIE tool, right? You need to have this combination, and then it's like incrementally, what can we do on top of your team having fully adopted the existing developer bottoms-up driven tools, and that is the level of, I think, rigor and consultative nature that our team is bringing to the CIOs and to the CTOs. And they appreciate it, right? We always say we want to be as close, get down to truth, right? Get to truth for all of these people, because we want to be consultants for them, and we want to serve as a voice to genuinely transforming the software development lifecycle. So that's the kind of people that we hire, this kind of technology that we have. And this is, I think, why you were so easily attracted to it, because even the way that you position your firm, your capabilities, like you guys are consultative, right? You're like, we want to work with you, we want to be in the trenches with you. Like that's how our entire go-to-market function works to our customers, right? And so that relationship was always very natural.
Yeah, that's great. And there's obviously the tools that focus on the individual developer, but what was very clear is that there's really nothing that's oriented towards the architect and the person who cares about the bigger picture.
Exactly.
It might be an entire one system, or it can be many systems, right? Or many applications. And I think Blitzy has this opportunity to play that role, to be the consultative expert in bringing next generation SDLC to that person. And that person, it's not just about single player mode. It's really about the entire team and moving the entire code base forward.
Exactly.
And I think we've got a unique role there.
So you probably had a moment in this process where you transferred intellectually to, this would be really great if it all goes the way I'm thinking about it, to like, wow, like this really is going to be generational and change the world. Like, can you walk us into either that moment or a collection of moments that helped build that moment?
As an investor, there's like 4 things that basically drive an investor decision. There's the team, there's market, there's technology, and then there's the deal. And usually, the deal kind of works itself out. The technology is really built by the team, so it kind of backs into these 2 things. And really,
you guys got hands-on. I'll give you credit. I got to give you credit. You guys got hands-on.
And we will continue to be working on that. But like when you get down to market and to team, and you're like, the real magic happens when you can get both of these things right. And we were super impressed, by you and Sid and what you've been able to build, how, the culture you're thinking about, the values you've talked about. It's very clear to me that we're gonna build hundreds of people business that's got deep cultural values and mission focused, and that resonates with me. But if I had to only pick between team and market, and you said pick one, I will tell you I would pick market. It's a 60-40 split. Most VCs would actually, on record, would actually say the opposite. They would say, oh, it's like 100% team because, and actually, I don't think the pattern matches that, because you've got great teams that haven't worked out because they didn't have that tailwind, right? So if you can just have the tailwind to ride and you have a good team, then that's really when a great outcome. And I think that's the situation we have here, where there's been this pent up demand for what we are now able to do, and we've got the team to go execute it. Someone's going to win this spot, and I think there's a great shot it's going to be us. Yeah,
I think so too. And the team is elite. It's unbelievable, but the numbers they indicate that there's something beyond just people that are great at executing. There's the market opportunity here. Like the technology is almost getting pulled out of the company, right? The folks are sort of even using it in ways that are emergent and surprising for us, right? It's like, oh wow, like I didn't actually consider
and that's the one thing that it's very clear. We talk about these wedge use cases, and I actually think like modernization is kind of really a wedge use case for us. And there's nothing about the platform that's actually specific to that. It just happens to be the easiest one for people to wrap their heads around, and probably the biggest pain they have. But then there's so many other use cases for the platform where they're totally brand new builds, a greenfield opportunities, and that's what excites me, is that we've got like unlimited opportunities, so many different sides at any one account. And the thing that's nice is we also have a wedge. People sometimes sell a platform, but they don't have a wedge. And that's equally, that's a fatal flaw as well, right? So we have the benefit of the wedge and this platform that we use well beyond our initial use case.
Well, we're thrilled to have Battery here. You guys
Thank you.
Right here in Boston with us.
We're thrilled to be here too.
So thanks for joining for the journey, and let's build a generational company.
Thank you for the chat. Appreciate it.